Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Jonathan Smith, the Michigan State Spartans, continue to roll in the transfer portal, landing another commitment from former Arizona State cornerback Ed Woods. A couple of really notable things about this commitment. One, Michigan State just went toe-to-toe with Alabama for the services of Ed Woods and won out. But secondly, this is a cornerback that you look at the traits that you want from grabbing guys from the transfer portal. Ed Woods, checks off most of those boxes. He's an experienced player that has started multiple seasons for Arizona State, has played at an extremely high level. And I think my favorite aspect about Ed Woods coming to Michigan State is, Ed Woods saw some really good quarterback and wide receiver play in the Pac-12, had phenomenal numbers. We can say this pretty surely. He's not going to see the same passing attacks at Michigan State in the Big Ten that he saw at Arizona State in the Pac-12 last year. I think this is a massive commitment. Want to talk about Ed Woods, talk about what this Michigan State secondary is going to look like. And I'll say this right now, cautiously optimistic about this unit being pretty solid in 2024 when you dive into some of the names. Excited to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, the Michigan State fans. We said it'd be kind of a busy next couple of weeks for Jonathan Smith, this Michigan State Spartans team. And Jonathan Smith's gotten active in the transfer portal, I think landing really good players, but also players at positions of need. That's exactly what you want to see from a program in the transfer portal. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Ed Woods. Now, briefly buzzing some film from Ed Woods, I think the biggest attribute that he has is he's a really smooth operator. Like, he is a guy that has really quick twitch. He's very smooth in the hips. Oftentimes in the hip pocket of wide receivers, he makes life very difficult for quarterbacks and wide receivers pushing the ball down the field because the throwing windows for a guy like Ed Woods are awfully small. You take a look at the numbers and say, faced 46 targets last year, only gave up 26 catches, a 56% completion percentage on those 26 catches, only gave up 239 yards. So this is a guy that, one, is very stingy with the completion percentage when targeted, but I think more importantly, he comes up in tackles. This is a guy that doesn't miss many tackles, doesn't give up the big play in coverage. That has been something that Michigan State has drastically struggled with in the past under Mel Tucker. And I think if there's one thing that you're kind of optimistic about being fixed for Michigan State, it's the big plays, it's the blown assignments, it's the missed tackles in space. Ed Woods is a guy that, he's a veteran, he's a physical tackler. You feel like he's not going to give up some of those big plays that we're used to seeing. Now, you look at this Michigan State, I should just say secondary room, and say, I'm pretty optimistic that this is going to be a unit that's going to be pretty solid in 2024. You look at the cornerback spot, Tatum, Rucker. Brantley is a solid football player. You inject Ed Woods, and I think injecting Ed Woods into this cornerback room is two things that are really big. One, he is just a really good football player. Like, there's a reason Alabama wanted him too. Very quality ball player. But more importantly, that Michigan State secondary, it's talented, but it's a little bit young. And so you're putting a guy that's going into his fifth year of college football into that program. That is exactly what this Michigan State secondary needed. You look at the safety room and say, a guy like Malik Spencer, there's an opportunity for Malik Spencer to be one of the best safeties in the Big Ten next year. And I look at this Michigan State secondary and say, at least the starters, you really kind of like what you have. Now, will we see Michigan State continue to try to address the depth of this roster? And that's something that we kind of know Jonathan Smith's just going to need to work on, right? Mel Tucker leaves. You lose a lot of depth pieces. That is something that is definitely a weakness in this Michigan State roster, but you're seeing Jonathan Smith certainly try to fix it. I'm a big fan of a guy like Ed Woods. And I want to talk about two other names that I'm kind of monitoring for Michigan State. One, you look at what Michigan State's already done. Brandon Lane, a guy that was very coveted at the FBS level, jumping from the FCS. Michigan State lands him. That was a massive position of concern. A guy like Lynch Adams coming from UMass, Ohio State, was very much in on Lynch Adams before he committed to Michigan State. You look at what Michigan State's doing in the portal, even a guy like Anthony Jones, who started out his career at Oregon, Indiana. You don't know too much about him, but you talked about the need for depth. Anthony Jones gives you that quality depth for Michigan State. Two guys I want to talk about real quick as potential targets for Michigan State. The first one, in this one, I'm not going to say it's a layup for Michigan State, but this is a guy that I would really like to see Michigan State land. Javier Suggs, coming from the Division II level at Grand Valley State in Michigan. I mean, extremely productive as an interior defensive lineman at that level of football. You take a look at his recruiting background or story, I should say. I mean, Indiana's in on him, Wisconsin's in at him, Florida State even offered him a couple of days ago. This is a guy that's garnering a lot of Power 5, a lot of FBS buzz, and Michigan State, I would like to see them close. We kind of talked about the biggest question mark that I have about Michigan State. I think this is a team that there's some boxes that you see checked, but the biggest question you have is on the inside of that defensive line, right? With Harmon, Simeon, Barrow Jr. transferring out, you say, well, we have 4-5 scholarship guys on the inside of that defensive line max. We got to get that number up, especially in Big Ten play. That is certainly how Jonathan Smith wants to run a program. Javier Suggs is a guy that a lot of Power 5 teams like. I certainly like, and I would like to see Michigan State get that one done. Supposed to be on campus this weekend for Michigan State. The other name, just to monitor if you're a Michigan State fan, a familiar name at that, Andrew Dennis, former 4-star prospect coming out of the 2024 class, early enrolled to Illinois. He was previously committed to Michigan State. He's in the portal once again. He's from the state of Michigan, was committed to Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised to see Michigan State go after a guy like Andrew Dennis hard. Again, it's no secret how Jonathan Smith wants to build this program, wants to get it done in the trenches. Andrew Dennis would be a great start to building those trenches up. We'll cut it at that. Big pickup for the Michigan State Spartans in Ed Woods. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.